Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Eva. Today we're going to be doing a nice full system deep field clearing. We're really going to be focusing on stabilizing into our sort of neutral, compassionate core. Lots coming through for like union codes, union energies, union with the divine, reunion. Yes, just shedding everything that's kind of being held in the way of that throughout time, space, throughout the genetic, the multidimensional genetic record, throughout the ancestral line. A really strong message of sort of assessing what needs to be assessed about the past, whatever you're still holding on to, looking at that from a wider scope. And then identifying where your defenses are being held against the truth of unity, against love, against expanding, because expansion is unifying. It's sort of, we're expanding when we sort of sink into, is what wants to come forward, into the 0 point field, right? This center of all beingness, I call it. That's at the center of all points. So we connect to the center of all points through that field. So when you expand your awareness into those different points, you can kind of imagine it as if it's like edges being dissolved from all of these different points at once, and they're unifying that awareness of consciousness back together. So just taking nice deep breaths, allowing whatever comes through, what feels meaningful to you. Don't try to direct it, just whatever comes through. Really focusing on that center of neutrality, that beingness that is projecting the experience here, not seeing yourself from that limited projection of self, but from the truth of self that is, the being that is projecting this reality. That's the only way that you're going to be able to undo what's been done in fear, to realize that you have done it, right? That it hasn't come from anything that is like existing from its own side, from without you, because that doesn't exist. That's not the truth of the field. There's sort of a message of the truth becoming easier to digest. And lots of heart opening, lots of, again, dissolving like negative attachment in the heart. Hina wusu kani mani unamasha. Hia wasa kana yunta pasha katasu. Just taking nice deep breaths, knowing you are very safe. You are very powerful. Hinasuna yushokaya snushana. You are strength. You are peace. Yanayoso ayoshuna sanainaso. You are certainty. Himasnusha yanusa kani tantayasa. Mushanasni andasuat. You are love. Yanayusi hundayusu tapawushuna kana. Just allowing your awareness to expand into these realities. Hinasuti kara. My cat's making noise. Hiashuni sana kantisa yosu washu kana masi. Hia usuna wuna kana mashia. Himasana wuna kawasa yashu. Hinasani. Maybe that's something coming up to be addressed too. Distractions, distracting thoughts. This is like a scary movie, but this sort of message of like the calls coming from inside the house, like it's always coming from inside. That's how the only way we can address it truly, to truly dissolve it from us, is to understand that all of these, what we perceive as attack, is coming from our own thoughts. It's coming from our own system. And then we expand into the awareness that all perceived others are part of the same mind field. Hinisani kana yoshi, different fractals experiencing it from different points, but one nonetheless. There are no private thoughts. All thoughts affect the entire field. Hinitio so shinamata karaisa yotoina. For many, many months, this message has been coming through as this being an essential thing for us to witness truly. We can sort of hold this conceptually, but it's about really experiencing this, like really, really getting as close to knowledge of it as you could. Because that is what, like when it's viscerally held in the system, that's when it's really going to bring through like physical healing. Because it's really just the awareness of it. The allowance of the awareness is what heals. You don't really have to learn how to do anything except be quiet, like quieting your ego mind. Hinisani tasukaya shuni pataya sanitana. Hina sunchaya siya tosa kunashana suyitoa. Himatuna ini tandaya ki. Hini asundu asoyashi sori pataya yo kunashana. Again, reunion with self, reunion with divine sort of family. On earth and in the other realms. Certainly this is something that has come through for this sort of weekly healing that I haven't posted yet, but this reunion with genetics, like the way we sort of connect to star beings, you could, or angelics don't seem to work this way as much, but different families in different galactic fields, galactic realities, universal realities, is through our DNA. So these codes really help us. That's really a lot of what this is for, because when you get down into what we perceive as physical healing, it's not ever really taking place there, but we can call it that. It is genetic family healing with sort of what we would think of as different species. This gets out there, right? But if you're here, you probably already sort of believe in that. And we all have different sort of component parts when we get down into these lower dimensions. But that's what's healing now. That's what's being brought into the fore now. I mean, we can see this all over the world. The time of the physical shift is now. We do all of this work in, upper dimensions, upper chakras, this kind of flowing through, right? This sort of vertical, connecting back into this divine feminine, true, like vertical connection to the divine. As we reunite with that true solar, that true enlightened divine feminine energy, that begins to enlighten the way down into the physical, which allows us to assess these reversal masculine structures and correct them. Remember, these two energies are one. They must be unified to work correctly. And from my experience, that really only works by connecting to where they are unified. It's only down in perception that they appear to be different. And it's all in story, just so we can kind of describe what we perceive to be happening. But that's not where our focus really lies when we do this work. The attention needs to be on the unified field. And then you just allow what needs to come through. And it is intelligence itself. It is of the ego to believe that you need to direct this. Or that you even need to understand it with your linear mind. That's of the ego. That's not spirit. When you connect to the unity of where you know, you wouldn't feel the need to describe it, because why would you need to do that? And where you're connecting at that level, where you're connecting to others, would be where they would know that as well. So it's also about, as we reunify, we reunify with divinely enlightened, inspired means of communication with each other, which is not body-based. Remember, the body is a symbol, it's a tool of communication. So of course it could be used that way. But true, like what you might call telepathy or tapping into the same current of field, would be of knowing. It wouldn't be of explanation. So you don't even need, you don't need to be able to describe it to anyone else to be really connecting. We need to let that kind of ego urge go, or you don't need to see in terms of beings at all in order to be connecting to the divine, because the 0-point field is all possibility at once, and it's not it's not really of perception. Knowledge is not perception. God is not perception. God doesn't have a perceptual mechanism. That's what we've made up in form. So it's not really about accessing those things. And I know that I say this a lot, but I think we get really bogged down in that. And I'm not saying it's wrong. We need to let go of good and bad ways, right? But if we want to be healed, we need to look where the answer really is. And I'm not saying that means you won't perceive things. You will. You will. You will perceive much more, because you will expand, and there is much more than we believe. But what is going to bring, I'm really only interested in expanding and offering in peace of reality, the reality of our peace, the reality of our being. And so that is that's what this offering is. Yasitaushna, hinamunto sonchiriti. And all will have to be recognized. Every part that's held in separation is going to have to be either forgiven, mostly forgiven, but at least acknowledged to be received back into the one by you. Yisuto kanai shinito sonuyuta. Tina sana yoshu karati sana yini. Hinata truatisa. There's a grief coming through, a kind of grief of separation, of being separate from self. It always is going to come down to that. That's always the rip. But it's the original rip. That's what I'm interested. All else is story emanating from that original rip. But we can get to that original rip. And then you witness it flowing out through the dimensions to be healed and unified. You don't have to do it the hard way. It's not more worthy. Spirit is now bringing the message of it's much easier than you're allowing it to be. Anything you think you have to achieve, to earn, is of the ego. Spirit would have you recognize your perfection, your eternity, your sinlessness right now. And it would take everything else away from you as soon as you don't want it. Your job is to assess why you want it. Why you want anything other than that, the presence of your true self. What do you believe about yourself that is standing in opposition to that? What do you think you want in the world of dreams that will bring you peace instead of that? Hinasani kana koruhita kana shikana. Kinimondo sunjini toai konui nia noshi. This might make you feel uneasy. Just breathe through that. It's uneasy. The ego never wants to look at the truth. Your body, when confronted with this work, is always probably going to feel a little bit of unease while you move through it. And that's okay. That's part of the work, is to sit through what's uncomfortable and then recognize its unreality until it's not uncomfortable anymore. Kisanayun doshi. You must realize the world is a dream if you want to be free of it. Hiasayashina sensarehina tusun sha'ai kim. Apusonchi kaisi. This doesn't mean that. And Nisaraisho basiritiso koash. It's in every moment that you hold this awareness, it is. And don't underestimate the power of that moment to undo undescribable time experience, like to heal instantaneously throughout realms that you can't imagine. The whole way this world was made was in us thinking that we could limit God and that we could describe and wrangle this force. And we have so much evidence of this hubris. Just look at mainstream science, that we project definitions and limitations onto universal processes that we have no means with our perceptual mechanism, such as it is, to understand. That doesn't make any sense. If you really sit with that, let it show you how it doesn't make sense, the way that we project the world, that we try to limit the limitless. It makes everything very boring and very painful. And it need not be. It's very, very important at this juncture that we recognize that the world we have made need not be the way that it is. And that by giving it up, by leaving it behind, by dissolving it, by letting it go, you give up nothing. Hinayu sunchini kantayak orukitas no shana kana kina sinchiriti. Hinandoye sini kinda kina shana troatusi karakorut. I know this might have sounded a little bit all over the place. I hope that it is helpful to you, and that if all of it isn't meaningful to you or useful, that maybe at least some of it is, and maybe some of it's for somebody else. Kina kunishana wusundi patokua kionto kina inishani kana tu sonchi hisi hini kanta korikayo kunishani kana yindi. Just much more allowance and much less reliance on linear reasoning and the ego. And sometimes I hear people say denying the ego is not possible, or resisting the ego doesn't heal. What I'm describing is not resisting the ego, and I do believe there is a way to live in form without it. It won't be this form, as we know it, but we're already different than we were. The trick is to not be afraid of letting it go, and to expanding your belief enough that there's another possible world, or infinite other possible worlds, and that we really have no idea the way that all of it works or what's possible. But if you open yourself up to the limitless reality, it will show you on its own. You have to be willing to see. And from the eyes of spirit, the ego is an insane mechanism built out of a mistaken belief and a desire to be that which you could never be. It doesn't need respect. It doesn't love, nor does it want to receive love, nor can it understand love. You don't love with your ego. It's not real. Yanayindas no shatisna kanta ari koribation do anashnoan hinas no shinitin drahit. That's not holding resistance to it, that's talking about it as it is. Hinayun toka rohita hioshanain sanan disai. Hinandraha rohita karakiata iriato rohanashini soka ruin sayash or ruin sayatu. Hininda orukina traya sundor windahiti. Hita sushirindasna trahan chiritisi. What this is really talking about is just stop trying to limit creation. Don't put limits on anything. Just work on allowance of the fullness of life. We let go of judgment, of good and bad, of right and wrong ways. We open up to everything being our spiritual teacher. Every opportunity we have to meet someone is an opportunity to meet the sun, the eternal sun, is to meet and recognize ourselves and to call self home with love. You don't have to tell anybody anything. We're not here to like lecture or convince anyone. It's just the way that you are. And each of these limitations is a defense against love. And the more we open into allowance and awareness of limitless creation, we will see those defenses just be dissolved, because that's the Holy Spirit, like the current of communication, of divine inspiration that flows through everything in form. That's its job, if it's flowing through a form that believes in fear. And you can align your will with that force, and then you become that force. In your body, that's what you begin emitting that light. That information, that homecoming, that sort of beacon. And remember that kernel, that like kernel of eternity, is inside of everything. It's in everything we see, sense. It's in everything because it's in us. We can't be a part of it, be apart from it, rather. So the mechanism to remember is always within us, and it's in everything we see and experience, because everything we see and experience is emitting from us. When you use these videos, it might be a good idea to sort of use them as a way in. Like, think about, sort of the messages that came through and the teaching and the wisdom, and just let it kind of unfold whatever needs to unfold. If you want to have a notebook nearby, or if you want to record yourself, if things come through that way. I talk out loud a lot. Whatever you need to sort of unravel. And remember, when I say things about tools and not finding yourself in the tools, it's not that you don't use the tools. We have to use the tools because we have to neutralize them and transmute them back into love. It's not, what I'm talking about is not searching for the truth of yourself in these tools or these symbols or these other realities, these other lifetimes, these other beings. But we will reunite them all. It will come into awareness, but it's not the ultimate truth. And it's only the ultimate experience, the direct experience with the eternal, formless divine that will make this real for you. That will reunite you with yourself, because that is what yourself is. That's very important to me. That's the big message that comes through. And I was rewatching the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus the other day, which is like one of my favorite movies. And I really recommend it. It's like this sort of like a ageless, I don't want to give too much away, but he's a monk. He's thousands of years old, and people can enter his imagination. And he is saying to someone who's like a little bit displeased with what goes on, like, I'm only providing the opportunity. What you do with it is up to you, right? Like, I am only providing a doorway, an opportunity, a space, a container, some people call it, for you to see yourself in this light, to experience this energy for yourself, to have a safe, comfortable space to interact with this information and to allow it to transform you through your choice of it. But I can't do anything without your allowance. I can't, and I would never negate the power of mind. I would not purport to. So all healing that you receive from this is because you have chosen it. And all opportunity that is given is always given, right? There are not chosen ones. Everyone is called. It's about if you will respond, if you will listen. So I hope that this was helpful to you. And I extend all peace to you. Remember that you are never in danger, no matter what this world appears to be. You are an eternal being of the One. You are the Holy Sun, S-U-N. Yes, you, us, all of us together, one. We need each other. This is not a time to further divide, even when there are beings that we perceive to be doing things we really disagree with on an ego level, on a personality level, on a world level, on a global scale. And to the rules of this world, there's good reason for that, yes? And whatever you feel about that, you work through it. Don't deny it, let it pass through you. But let it continue to flow. And move through that practice in the neutrality of your being. Because that's how you're going to be able to heal this. Remember, we don't change the world. We change ourselves. We purify ourselves, and what emits from us changes. And then we experience what we are emitting. So that's our message for today. I love you guys very much. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you sign up for my newsletter if you're into the meditations, because I do recorded sessions every week. And that's I use the post thing on YouTube to notify, but my newsletter has writing and all kinds of different stuff if you're interested in this work and the way that I share it. There's one-on-one sessions available. There's an hour and a half hour. There's all kinds of other stuff available on my website as well. And more music coming. I just got a theremin, so I'm so excited about that. So make sure you share with your friends too if you know people who are into this work. And sending so much love to you. Thank you guys.